Hi there, Satin class. For our English lessons, for the next few lessons, you're going to be doing pre-recorded videos with myself. We're going to use the book Mr. Penguin and the Lost Treasure. You've heard a few chapters already. I will read more chapters each day for you. We're going to look at using the Right Stuff symbols, Mrs. C's lenses that she writes with, for our vocabulary collection and our sentence structure. But we won't be sentence stacking in the way that you have been with Mrs. C. So we will do a task each day that involves some sort of grammar, and you will have the chance to pause the video clips and have a go at those tasks. But each day you're going to need to set up your book slightly differently. So for today I've got a picture here of what I need you to set your book up to look like. So we've got a double page spread, we have a thinking side and a writing side. I need numbers 1 to 9, 4 boxes, and they need to be roughly about 12 lines each, but don't worry if it's not exact. Okay, so pause the video and set up your book, and then come back and we'll look at these statements down the side. Okay, so you've set up your book now, and we're going to look at clauses 1 to 9. So each one of these is a clause. Now if we come to what we're actually going to be doing today, we're going to be looking at different types of sentences. Single and multi-clause sentences. Before we do that, we need to remember what a sentence is and what a sentence has to have. So we're going to take number 1 to start with. So first of all, we have a majestic ancient skeleton. Well, one of the main things a sentence needs to have is a full stop, a capital letter at the start, but let's read it one more time. A majestic ancient skeleton. Do we have a complete idea? Not really, no, because nothing's happening to that majestic ancient skeleton. We don't know any more than the fact that it's majestic and ancient. So it doesn't have a verb. So number 1, you would need to put a cross, because that is not a sentence. So what I need you to do is read through 2, 3, 4 and then all the way to 9, and each one read it and decide whether it is a sentence or not. You can pause the video and have a go at that task. Okay, so here are the answers. The clauses in red are the clauses that are not sentences. The clauses in green are the clauses that are sentences. So here we go. So the number 1 is not a sentence because we already said, didn't we, that it did not have a verb. A verb is a doing word. There's no action in that sentence. It's not a complete idea. It doesn't make sense on its own. Number 2, a sign swung precariously over the entrance door. So we know that's a sentence. The sign is swinging, or it's swung precariously over the entrance door. We know it makes sense. It stands alone. It's a complete idea. Number 3 does not have a verb. If we read it, echoing noises and musty smells. Okay, so it's a clause. It's not a sentence. It doesn't stand alone. It does not make sense on its own. Now, Mr. Penguin ducked. Number 4. I hope you notice that it's not a sentence because it doesn't have a full stop. Even though it makes sense, Mr. Penguin ducked. It's a nice short sentence. It's a complete idea, but it does not have a full stop, so we can't count it as a sentence. Number 5. It looked disastrous. Yep, definitely a sentence. There's a verb. It makes sense. Number 6. Colin gulped. Again, nice and short. It's one complete idea. We know what Colin did. It's definitely a sentence. But number 7 does not have a verb. If we read it, tile after tile after tile. So we can't use that as a sentence on its own. It's a clause. It doesn't make sense on its own. Number 8 is definitely a sentence. A hole larger than an average door had been blasted through the stairway. So that is a complete idea, there's a verb, had been blasted through the stairway. So there is a complete idea. It is a single clause. And then number 9 is highlighted in red, and that's because it is an incomplete idea. It does not make sense on its own. Appearing from behind an unusually large sloth skeleton. What appeared? We don't know. It's not a complete idea, even though there is, in actual fact, a verb in the word appearing. So I hope you did okay with that. But what we are going to do is look at our clauses in a little bit more detail. So we're going to look at single clause. As I've said to you many times, they contain one complete idea. They stand alone, they make sense, they have a verb, a full stop and a capital letter. But we can also have longer sentences which have much more information. They give more information to the reader, and they can be complex sentences. In other words, they need a conjunction. So they are several clauses, or multi-clause, several being multi, and they are joined by subordination or coordination. Now, subordination is a fancy word for the conjunctions that we use to make subordinating clauses, and coordination is a fancy word for the conjunctions we use to join two sentences together. And we use the word and, or but, or so. And then for subordination, we might use whilst, or when, or because, or if. Okay, so what I've done is I've put on the screen now the subordinating conjunctions. They're not all. It's not all of them. There are some more. Ones we use quite a lot are whilst, because, when, or if, and then coordinating conjunctions, linking two ideas together, and, so, but, or, and there are others as well. So, what we're going to do now is we're going to look at these sentences. We're just going to work through each set of sentences, and we're going to decide whether it's a single clause, it stands alone on its own, it's completely its own idea, or a multi-clause. In other words, one or more clause. So several ideas put together, usually with those conjunctions. So the first one at the top there's no need to do any writing down of this one, we're just going to work through it. I'm going to ask you whether you think Mr. Penguin adores fish fingers, whether you think it's a single clause or a multi-clause. So if you said single clause, you'd be correct. With only a fish finger sandwich to keep him going, Mr. Penguin set out for the Museum of Extraordinary Objects. So which one do we think, a single or a multi-clause sentence? That one is indeed a multi-clause. We've got with only a fish finger sandwich to keep him going, and then Mr. Penguin set out for the Museum of Extraordinary Objects. Two clauses together. This third one here, Colin was always on edge. Remember, Colin was the spider. Now, Colin was always on edge would be a single clause sentence, so well done if you got that correct. What about the fourth one here? Colin and Mr. Penguin were thrilled to run into their friend Edith whilst racing down the street. So do we think that's a single clause or a multi-clause? That's correct, it is in fact a multi-clause. Colin and Mr. Penguin were thrilled to run into their friend Edith. That would work well on its own, but we've got that bit more information here whilst racing down the street. So that's another clause. In fact, it's a subordinating clause. It starts with a whilst. Okay, this one here. He reached for his hat and slid across the room to the door. So that one is a multi-clause sentence. We've got he reached for his hat and slid across the room to the door. It's very interesting though, this one, because he reached for his hat stands on its own. If we take out the and read slid across the room to the door, what would be missing? There'd be a word missing. Slid across the room to the door. We need to know who, don't we? So it's an interesting little sentence, that one. We've got, he reached for his hat and slid across the room to the door. We could have, he reached for his hat and he slid across the room to the door. But do we really need the he if we're making it a compound sentence or a multi-clause sentence? So no, we could take out the he, which they have indeed. So here we go. The last one here. Unfortunately, the museum was locked and Mr. Penguin feared that his first adventure might be a failure. So if we're reading that one, we think it could be, which one do you think? Single or multi? It is in fact a multi-clause sentence. It's joined with an and. We could have, unfortunately the museum was locked. It would work well on its own. If we take out the and, we could have Mr. Penguin feared that his first adventure might be a failure. But we've joined it with an and to make it a bit more, make it flow a bit more, in fact, and give more information. Okay, so we're going to move on from our ideas with our sentences. We'll remember them and we'll use them in our writing later on in the lesson. But what we're going to do is listen again to chapter 1 of Mr. Penguin and the Lost Treasure. And what I want you to do is pick out what Mr. Penguin does to try to ensure that he receives business. So you're going to listen carefully, follow along and read along if you want to. Chapter 1. All Adventures Considered. Excuse me. It was 10:32 on a Monday morning, and Mr. Penguin was twirling about slowly on his swizzly office chair and flipping the end of his beak with a crab stick. He was bored. Today was his first adventure. Start again. Today was his first day being a professional adventurer, but it wasn't quite going to plan. Yesterday, he'd placed an advertisement in the local newspaper, and he thought that today his telephone would be ringing its head off from the moment he flipped the close sign on his office door to open at 9 a.m. It was supposed to have been non-stop adventures. People ringing up with mysteries for him to solve, missing diamonds to find, jungles to run through under a shower of poison-tipped darts, and certain death to be very much avoided. That sort of thing was always going on in Mr. Penguin's favourite adventure books, which had given him the idea to be an adventurer in the first place. But this hadn't been the case at all. His telephone had sat tight-lipped and silent. The only noise was the squeak, squeak, squeak of the office chair as it twirled around, and the low, dreary hum of the fan on the ceiling of Mr. Penguin's igloo. This really wasn't good enough, thought Mr. Penguin, trying not to look at all the unpaid bills pinned to his notice board. Setting himself up as an adventurer had been a very expensive business indeed. His special hat with the arrow through it and the selection of rather jazzy bow ties had cost a fortune, and the rent for his igloo was astronomical. All that was left in his piggy bank was a bit of fluff and a paper clip. Sorry, we've just had a bit of a malfunction. There we go. All that was left in his piggy bank was a bit of fluff and a paper clip, and the fish finger sandwich in his refrigerator was the very last packed lunch. If he didn't get an adventuring job soon, there would be no more fish fingers and no more crab sticks, and a lot more grumbly noises coming from his tummy. It would mean packing up all his belongings into his battered old suitcase and hopping on the first boat back to the frozen south. Mr. Penguin shuddered at the memories of stomach-churning waves and icy winds. "What I need," he said, "is for that phone to ring, and for there to be a jolly exciting adventure on the other end." The words were hardly out of his beak. Would you believe it? The telephone did ring, and it rang very loudly. So what did Mr. Penguin do to try to ensure that he receives the business that he needs? He placed an advert in the local newspaper. So there's the headline of his advert there: professional adventurer seeking mystery to solve. So for today, what we're going to do is collect the vocabulary to write an advertisement, as if we are Mr. Penguin and we are looking for our mystery to solve. The first thing we're going to collect, those 4 boxes that you've got, the first thing we're going to collect are Mr. Penguin's qualities. What makes him a good adventurer? We're going to look for synonyms for this phrase, looking for. So other words that mean the same as looking for. Adverbials for how. How does he approach his adventures? How is he going to be a good adventurer? And the last one, the conjunctions, the whilst, the when, the if, and the and. Okay. Okay, so I've written up 2 of Mr. Penguin's qualities there, brave and courageous. You can pause the video and you can collect some other qualities that he has. So, yes, he's very brave, he's very courageous, easy for me to say. What other words? You could use words that mean the same as those. Brave and courageous. We could have, let's see, what about the word dare? Oh, pen's not going to play the game. So, daring would work. Adventurous. There are a few. I'm going to get you to pause the video and have a little think and write down maybe 2 or 3 words that mean brave or courageous. If you're not sure, you can use the words that I've got. Okay, so what I've done is I've just, in the pausing of my video clip, I've added some of my own. You can add these if you need to pause and add yours as well. I'm going to read through them. Let's go from the top. We've got brave and courageous, daring, intrepid. Intrepid, that's a good one. It's fearless and brave and courageous and daring all in one. It's a good one, that one. Intrepid. I'll let you have that one. You can have that one on me. Keen. Now, I know I said try to find words that mean brave, but actually we can also add some words to describe him in a little bit more detail about how he's going to be this good adventurer. And we've got professional, because we know he's professional. He's tried really hard to look the part, hasn't he? He's got his hat and he's got his satchel and his magnifying glass that he's spent so much money on. He's keen and enthusiastic. Enthusiastic would work well. So you can have those if you need to pause them. Sorry, pause the video and help yourself to those words. Write them down in your boxes, the top left box. Okay. What we now need to do is look for our words, collect a few words that mean the same as looking for. Okay, that mean the same as looking for. So I'm just going to go back because in the page previous, can you remember I had professional adventurer seeking mystery to solve. Seeking would work well as a synonym for looking for. So I'm going to use seeking. I will write it down. I wonder if you can find some more. Okay, so I've added some words now. I've got seeking, as I said to you. I've got hoping for, searching, wishing for. Wishing and hoping, they don't always mean looking for, but it gives us that sense that he's really looking forward to, you know, being keen and enthusiastic for a fantastic adventure to go on. Hungry for. I know it doesn't really look like looking for, doesn't really link to seeking, but if you're hungry for adventure or you really want to do something, you might be hungry for that mystery to solve if you were Mr. Penguin. So over here now, so down in your bottom left hand box, you're going to think about words and phrases, it doesn't have to be just a word, for how he would do it. So for example, he might do it with the help of his friend Colin. He might be hungry for adventure. That tells me how he's going to do it. Or he might be doing it with bravery, with the bravery of a lion, maybe. Maybe he is stealthy. In fact, actually, I think I'm going to pause my video and add stealthy up to the qualities, and maybe with the stealth of a leopard. I'm going to pause my video and I will write some down, and then you can have them if you would like to, or you can be writing them down at the same time as me. Okay, so I've managed to get 3 adverbials for how. We sometimes start our sentences with adverbials. We call them fronted adverbials, and that would work well to go with our multi-clause sentences that we looked at the start of the lesson. So we could be thinking, whilst we're writing them down, oh, how would I form that into a sentence that makes sense? So I could have, with the help of my friend Colin, I am seeking, or we are seeking, adventure and mystery. I will work with the bravery of a lion, because he's an advertisement. Mr. Penguin is trying to sell himself. So now what we want to do is try to find some conjunctions to go with our work. So before we do that, if you need to pause the clip to write down any more vocabulary, then please do. And what we'll do is we'll look at some conjunctions. They are the words that join the sentences. We looked at them at the start of the clip, quite early on. So if you can remember some, then write them down. How might you join your ideas together to make those multi-clause sentences? Okay, so you can see my conjunctions. I've gone with and so. I'm not sure I'm going to use them, if I'm honest, but it just reminds me that I can use conjunctions to help me form my sentences, to help me look at those multi-clause sentences to give more information. Whilst, if and when, again, I may not use them, but it's good practice to think about how you might join your sentences. So, we're now going to do some writing. I've got a writing side here, and in a minute I'm going to pause my clip and my ideas are going to appear on my left hand side, because if you remember, it's good to keep the left hand thinking side open whilst you're writing, so you can use the ideas as you need to. Okay, so Saturn class, what I've done is I've put up my thinking side, if you like, my thinking side of all the language that I collected by myself. You can have that language if you want to. You may have different ideas as well, which is fantastic. And I'm going to keep that on my left-hand side. So you keep your left-hand side open, like you would do during our sentence stacking lessons. And then I'm going to write on my writing side. I will write here sentence by sentence. I'll then explain each sentence and what I've used. And then you can write your own version based on the sentences that I'm going to model. So as you can see, I've started off by giving my little advert, a title. I've included the word professional. We know he's an adventurer. And we are Mr. Penguin, so we know we're professional, we know we're an adventurer, and we are seeking a mystery to solve. You might want to tweak that slightly. You might have professional penguin seeking adventure. Professional penguin and spider seeking adventure. That's entirely up to you. So an advert would need a title. So you can pause the video and you can do your title now. I'm going to pause mine and I'm going to write the first sentence of my advert. So you can see here my very first sentence. Brave, intrepid penguin, hungry for adventure. Now I've used a comma in between brave and intrepid because it is two adjectives together, a little list. Brave, intrepid penguin, hungry for adventure. I've used some of my language for the looking for, and I've used the qualities that an adventurer is going to need to have. Is this a single clause or multi-clause sentence? Brave, intrepid penguin, hungry for adventure. So it makes sense on its own. It's a penguin and he is hungry for adventure. So there's a verb-ish there. It's a single clause sentence. It's on its own. It makes sense on its own. It's one single idea. It's a penguin. He's hungry for adventure. We've just been a bit creative with the words. So I'm going to write my second sentence, but whilst I do, you can be writing your first one. So you can be thinking how you might structure your sentence to be a single clause, the most important information, the penguin seeks adventure. Okay, we need to include some of this brilliant language that we have for Mr. Penguin's adventurous qualities. Off you go. Okay, so I hope you managed to write your first sentence, your title and your first sentence. I've moved on to my second sentence in my advert now, and I've now gone for a multi-clause sentence. So I'm really thinking about giving more information. I've put an adverbial for how, so I've gone down to my adverbials for how section, and I'm looking at how I might write my second sentence. So here we go. With the help of my daring companion. Do you see there? I had friend and I changed it because I know some better words for friend. I know some improved language, some synonyms. I could even have changed the word help, maybe for, I don't know, assistance, or yeah, with the assistance of my daring companion. Yeah, that might have worked. I'll leave that up to you. Let's go back to it. With the help of my daring companion, we will bravely serve all your mystery-solving needs. So I hope you can see, Saturn class, that sentence has a lot more information. It is a multi-clause sentence. There is with the help of my daring companion. Doesn't make sense on its own, but if we put a comma, we can then move on to the rest of the information. We will bravely serve all your mystery-solving needs. So those multi-clause sentences give good information to our reader. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is have a go at your second sentence now. So you might choose, with the bravery of a lion, we will fearlessly serve your mystery solving needs. You might change that. Solve all your... do we want to solve them? Do we want to... interesting. You have a go. I know you can do this. In fact, I know that you can improve my writing quite a bit. You always blow me away with the quality of your writing. So have a go at that second sentence, and whilst you do, I'm going to pause and I'll write the next one. Okay, so I hope you managed to get your second sentence done there. I've got a problem with my third one. I can't seem to finish it, and I think I'm going to need a little bit of thinking. So I've got here, we are courageous, professional, and there's my conjunction that I chose to use. So I'm making it a multi-clause sentence, but I don't know what I'm keen for. Let's go back to the original vocabulary collection that we made. Doesn't give me too much there, does it? What are they hungry for or keen for? Success, or keen for adventure, used adventure. Tell you what, I'm going to pause it and I'm going to have a think. Whilst I'm having a think, you could be starting your next sentence. We are courageous, professional, and... so you might decide on some of these different qualities. Let's see what you come up with. So as you can see, I did eventually finish it. I did have to think. We are courageous, professional and keen for success out in the field. Now, in the book, in the first chapter, he was keen to go anywhere, wasn't he? So he was keen to go to the jungle. He's keen to go most places. So perhaps we could finish off our writing by looking at where he might go. So I'm going to think about where he might go and maybe how he can entice the people with mysteries to hire him, how he wants to be hired, doesn't he? So we might think about whether or not he's going to be, whether he's going to have great prices. Is he going to charge too much for his services? Are the missions? Mission, of course, he could be going on a mission. Hungry for a mission. Oh, I'm so sorry, Saturn class. I have not put that down, but hungry for a mission, that might work well. So if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to need to change some of this, that's fine. You can go back and edit it out. In fact, I probably will, to be fair. We are courageous and keen for success out in the field. Do you know, I think I'm going to pause this and I think I'm going to have a little bit of an edit. Yeah, so as you can see, what I've done is I've taken off the end bit. I wasn't overly keen on that. This is absolutely fine. Okay, I'm a little bit more happy with my work now. So I'm going to read it back from this. We are courageous. So here we go. We are courageous, professional and keen for success. So no mission is too big or small. And if you look here, cleverly, I've managed to get another conjunction in to have a multi-clause sentence. I feel quite proud of myself there. I've also added this little section here just to entice my my new bosses into hiring me. Great prices too. Might have competitive prices even, in fact. And then so that we know how to get hold of Mr. Penguin, we're going to add a phone number for him. So I'm going to read that through one more time, right from the beginning. So let's go from the title. Professional adventurer seeking mystery to solve. Brave, intrepid penguin hungry for adventure. With the help of my daring companion, we will bravely serve all your mystery-solving needs. We are courageous, professional, and keen for success, so no mission is too big or small. Great prices too. Call Mr. Penguin 0501 080 1234. Yeah, I think I'm really pleased with that. But I know full well that you can probably do a good job, probably a better job actually than me, because you are good at this. So I can't wait to see them. What I need you to do is take a little photograph of your finished work and attach it to your assignment, and then we can have a look at some of your ideas. Good luck. I think you'll be truly super. You may have even finished it already, so have a little look through, check your spelling before you have your photograph before you photograph your work.